Hey everybody, welcome to Geek Rant. It's Greg here on the channel with Toby, and today we're going to be talking about the Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power teaser trailer. Cool, that's a mouthful, isn't it? Today we're going to be talking about the new teaser trailer for the Amazon series, which is coming on the 2nd of September, which coincidentally is also the anniversary of Tolkien's day when he passed away.
Yeah, his death.
So that's not a bad omen.
Yeah, well, something may be dying today. I don't know, or whenever that trailer was. Thing to note before we move forward is that this is the most expensive TV series ever made.
Yes.
Half a billion for the whole 8 episodes.
Crikey. Yeah, that's a lot of money. Yeah. And I think it's obviously been a bit of a desperate attempt by Amazon to create its own kind of Game of Thrones type series, that will get some of that same sort of support and fan base.
It's an interesting one. There's been a lot of discussion about what Jeff Bezos wants from this series. Whether he actually has anything to do with it, I don't know. But he has been reported as saying that he wanted to sort of be a Game of Thrones type setting. Yes. But they have refuted that to a certain extent, saying that there's not going to be things like nudity and stuff like that in it. But there is this power struggle. The political side of it isn't necessarily a George R.R. Martin trait. No. Tolkien used a lot of political stuff in his work, so I don't think they need to sort of draw upon that brand necessarily to make a statement, and that's the problem that I think that they could be having. With making statements like that, people get expectations, and you're never going to meet the same expectations because they're completely different books.
Exactly. I think it's dangerous, isn't it, to go start off with that sort of pitch or that sort of way, because it's also Tolkien is a very different thing completely, isn't it? It's like you say, there's not all the sort of gore and the sex and all that sort of thing that's inherent in Game of Thrones. Although they're fantasy and that sort of thing, they're very, very different, aren't they? And I think also there are huge Tolkien fans. There are people who know all the lore and the history of these worlds, and I've seen some interesting bits online about are they going to destroy the lore and the history of what all the Tolkien stories were. Here we go then. This is the trailer for the Rings of Power.
There was a time when the world was so young.
Yeah, we got a good CGI shots coming in. They spent a lot of money in this CGI, so it better be good.
But even
it's very reminiscent of the Jackson films, isn't it? In its
they're definitely pulling on that, aren't they?
Approach. Definitely.
It's high fantasy. Sweeping landscapes.
Exactly, trying to give those landscapes like they did in the original films.
Yeah.
Dwarfs their minds.
It's the dwarven stronghold.
But we Harfoots have each other.
And we kind of seeing the different types of people.
Yeah, I was just laughing at the accent on that character.
Yeah. It's a weak Irish accent.
That was pretty bad, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So that's Galadriel.
Put up your sword.
And I think this is Elrond, isn't it?
Yeah, Elrond. That's right.
Still out there. The question now is where.
It is over.
You have not seen what I've seen.
I have seen my share.
You have not seen.
There she is again. That's some sort of great battle. I've forgotten exactly what it's called.
Yeah.
I mean, she's not even meant to have been there in the original script.
No, I know. This is what I've heard. There's a lot of changes to that.
Legend begins.
I think that's Gil-galad.
It will be the end,
and
not
these.
Just of our
It's so hard to see what's what.
All people.
This is Numenor. I know that's Numenor. These are the Harefoots or
but their time has come.
Harfoots?
Yeah, the Harfoots. Yeah, they're hobbits basically. They couldn't use the word hobbit.
No.
We either move forward.
And I think the guy that you see on that boat is going to be Saruman.
This could be the beginning of a new era.
Sauron, sorry.
Yeah, Lenny Henry.
Is that Lenny Henry?
Yeah, yeah. And there's a lot of talk about the prosthetics as well on the feet. That didn't look as if they could walk in those feet. Did it really? Okay. I think it's probably important to say at this stage, isn't it, that we're not experts on Lord of the Rings.
No.
We've seen all the films. I've read the books.
Yes.
Which was about 20 years ago.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, and we've taken interest in it because we feel that Tolkien is part of our heritage here in the UK, and it's part of who we are. He wrote about us and sort of embodied us within the Hobbits to a certain extent, and we feel like there's a certain ownership because it is
very much.
I think that would be fair to say, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's a funny thing because we don't have that many legend type stories, do we? And I think he wanted some sort of folklore legend, a bit more for he was obviously he was a professor, wasn't he? At
it's true.
Was it Oxford or Cambridge? He was either one at Oxford, was it?
Yeah.
I think he taught about things like Beowulf and ancient myths like that. So he's always had that sort of interest to create some sort of ancient myth type, and
it's interesting because that is because as a country we've been invaded so many times. The ancient myths of the Britons aren't written down. No. It's there in history, but we don't know it because the Romans came, the Vikings came, the Germans came. Everybody's invaded the country, and we have a combined history, if you like. Those we partly own some of those histories, and I think that Tolkien, obviously, as you say, he felt like he needed to recover, to sort of reinstate some kind of history. Yeah, and so he started to write the Lord of the Rings. This tale, Middle Earth.
Yes, that's right. And obviously there was a lot of notes and previous stuff that he'd written as well, and that kind of got formed into the Silmarillion. Which actually I quite enjoyed that when I read that. It was about 20 years ago, so
I did start reading it about a year ago, and I got about a third of the way through, and then I just got sort of distracted. I think it's one I need to listen to rather than try and read again.
I quite enjoyed it, but I think that will have more impact as those sorts of stories on what this series is, basically. The reason I was sort of saying that is because it's obviously before, this is set before the
in the Third Age,
yes. Was this the second? I thought this was the Second Age.
This is the Second Age, yes. No, you're right, yes, Second Age.
Third Age was and before there was Sauron, there was a Morgoth, wasn't there? A huge baddie called Morgoth, and this kind of picks up after he's been defeated. It's the start of the Second Age. It's where they're going to then sort of talk about the forgings of the Rings of Power.
And huge swathes of land have been destroyed off the main Middle Earth. So it's a massive battle. With the image that we saw of the battle in the trailer is kind of referring back to that, I believe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if they spent that much money on this, then I'm wondering, will we see some of that? Whether it be as a flashback or as it was a little bit there, wasn't there? That sort of that red sort of where everyone was flying, sort of.
Because Galadriel wasn't supposed to have been in that battle.
No.
She's apparently went off with her husband to some other location, and Elrond was much more likely to have been in that original battle. Yes. Yeah. As the Maya, I think they're called, aren't they? The kind of super race. Mm-hmm. So we're kind of playing with playing loose with some of the facts that Tolkien laid down.
Yeah. And I think also you see a lot of the sort of Numenorian sort of stuff, and I think that is also time frame wise, that's not quite right. I think there's certainly going to be some upset, hardcore Lord of the Rings fans, who are going to be really, annoyed at these kind of changes. Which
thousands and thousands of fans that have already voiced their protest at some of the content that's been released.
Yeah,
they have certain rights to particular elements of the Tolkien estate.
Yes.
So there are certain stories they've got rights to, but they don't have all the recent stories as rights. So they're more. It's mythos in a way, rather than necessarily what you might consider to be a normal storyline that expands. So they've had to sort of fill it in, and what they've sort of done is they've jammed in a whole bunch of stuff into these myths.
Yes,
like the Harefoots, the Harfoots, and the fact that the hobbits weren't around during this period, and there's also talk of the wizard being there, and there's much speculation about who this wizard is who appears in this fireball,
right?
Is
that what that is, the fireball that's coming down? That's So
that's basically is it Sauron? Is it is that him appearing as a wizard? Because when he climbs out of that fireball, you see the stones rising around him as if there's magic present. So there's definitely the implication that this person has some magical property, and you would need it if you survived being birthed in a ball of fire like that, wouldn't you? I guess, but
absolutely, yeah. And there was some quite interesting imagery, but it's going to be super CGI based, isn't it? And I think that was part of the appeal to the original films. And I know there was a lot of CGI in the original films, but there was also a hell of a lot of stuff built, that was sets and original, places that they completely created. Helm's Deep was a great big thing they built, when they went to see the Riders of Rohan, that was all built on a hill and so all these sorts of things. I just hope it's not just going to become like a Star Wars prequel film, where you see loads and loads of just CGI because they think this is what they want to see, a load of CGI, that would be a real shame.
I agree, and I think that they have a particular style. Peter Jackson developed a style where he would isolate what would look like a quite highly detailed settlement within a beautiful landscape. And it worked really well. And I think from the trailer you can see that they've done that well. It would seem they've done it well.
They're trying to do that. It looked like it, didn't it?
It did. It looked. I felt that that part of it came off well. So from the trailer, which was good.
No, you're right. When we said that as we were watching it, didn't we? It seemed like there was some very scenic. Exactly that. He used to have great big panning shots, didn't he, of terrain? Where leading up to these great cities, and that was always a nice feature, wasn't it? It gave it a real feeling of this is a real world, and a real detail to it. But it was nice when you got into those worlds that they'd created it properly. That there was all sorts of sets. They used what they call bigatures instead of miniatures, bigatures, because they made some of these huge models of the towers and things, like in the two so the towers were built, like that, and then filmed and CGI'd over the top of it. And for me, I'm just a big fan of that sort of approach to it. It may not be the same now, but
I think they do that. There's images of orcs with their armor and the elves in their armor, which doesn't look that great, to be honest. Looks a bit kind of soft. Whereas armor's sort of meant to give off that strength type appeal. But maybe that, I don't know how that's going to work out. The physicality of these objects is important. You can always see it, you can sense it when you watch it, can't you, when something's real, because the way people interact with it often it is the indicator, and it's that, not necessarily how it looks, it's how your actors can behave with it. Some are really good at acting with the CGI, but others they struggle with it, and sometimes you get that sense. So if you can, I think
if it's all good around, if you've got it around you, you're immersed in that, aren't you? You suddenly, as an actor, it must be a lot better to try and, rather than having to think, oh right, there's a massive cavern there with all these different gold things on there. Do you know what I mean? It would be
exactly, and they're all just green blobs that you've got to imagine are those things.
Here comes a monster. It's a green blob on a stick.
We're not all Benedict Cumberbatch, are we? Let's face it. And, he's probably the best at doing that sort of thing.
He's pretty good at that.
Even then, he's pretty good at that. But
I think he's done it a lot, hasn't he? So he's just got.
He has done it a lot. I think he's got at his home. He's got a new green interior decor that he in his house, because he's so used to it now.
I see. Wow. And so when he takes a snap of himself, he CGI. He puts it all in the background.
He's suddenly a dragon 1 minute.
That's a great idea.
I mean, the characters. I mean, talking about characters. It is interesting what they're thrown. So they've not only jammed in these different timelines, but they're jammed in different sorts of characters, and how they're looking has been questioned by a lot of people. I mean, Galadriel is obviously the main character, and she's portrayed as this warrior, which she never was. No. And you have to ask yourself, not looking at this in a woke way, but asking yourself, why would they do this to a character who has an ethereal presence and has a magic through that? That was her strength.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, how then would she, how is that power and the beauty that she had translated into something that's quite violent and visceral? Does that not completely change a character? If it was a man, if Elrond had been turned into something sort of slender and beautiful and kind of decorated, and was powerful, that would feel awkward, wouldn't it? I think it is changing the dynamic of that character, which is questionable. Why would you do it? I mean, what reasons are there for doing that sort of thing?
Yeah, it's so difficult, isn't it? Because it is when you look back at the production of Peter Jackson, he's taken it literally from the book, isn't he? All the look of the people, there aren't, unfortunately, it's not many black and so on in his writing, and I think it's a really tricky one, isn't it? Because we want to be more inclusive generally, but it's also like, this is like if you're going to the heart of the book and what it all the descriptions of them, and there's a couple of black characters in there that people are sort of saying, oh well, described elves as pale skinned, well, do you know what, there could be a black person, a black elf, it just could have just been a different, so I just, it's things like that where I'm really on the fence about that sort of thing, because I think I know what they're trying to do, and it makes sense in modern times to be more inclusive, and not to we don't want just a whole cast of white people, but when it's something like this where it's been so historically, that is what it's about, it's really tricky, isn't it?
It is, and I think that part of the problem we have is that is it. What is Amazon doing? I think that they have put a pretense to a certain extent that they're creating something that is like Peter Jackson's films. But actually the reality of it is they're not really going to be much like it, apart from necessarily in some of the CGI, and some of the layout.
The style of it was the same story.
The style of it was, but I think. But that could just be high fantasy anywhere, really. I think a lot of films are high fantasy and they have that sort of look. I think that, so what is Amazon? And now originally they were saying that they're doing a Tolkien story, but they've kind of backtracked a little bit recently by saying it's now based upon the Tolkien lore.
Yeah.
And I think that what we have to separate now, because we have to separate a story that that abides by the rules, which this doesn't, and so this is something new. This is based upon, this is a sort of an abridged version of the Tolkien stories. This can't be viewed as I don't think it can be viewed as canon. This is a spin-off, if you like.
It is, isn't it?
It's tantamount to fan fiction.
Yeah,
this is basically
it's unfortunately, I can see what you're saying. It's
this is, and the guys that are in charge have got,
it's not kind of true to the actual original idea, is it? And the original principle of it. That's the difficulty, isn't it? You've got to be with something like this. It's almost like, why didn't they just create some other, and I know it's because they want the Lord of the Rings, but the thing is, they know they're just going to fucking upset all the fans, who won't want to watch it, who will slate it, and it will ultimately doom. So it's kind of like, why are they bothering to do this? But I know obviously to make a shitload of money, but they'll still get watched.
They'll have to do, it will. We will watch it, but I mean, I think it will do better if Amazon put out the right message. That this isn't a Peter Jackson series. No, this is something completely different. This is we've made up the story. We've added in new characters that never existed. New characters that are in like Bronwyn, I think is a new character, isn't she? Is that new? Right, the new Harfoot, and they're the Lenny Henry character, they're all new, and I think that these characters, right, they're presenting something different that is there's no way could be viewed as Tolkien-esque, because they're written by modern people in a modern time that aren't drawing upon the same kind of scholarly roots.
Yeah, but people that would argue then, if Tolkien, think about it, if Tolkien had written this, say 10 years ago, okay, if he'd written Lord of the Rings 10 years ago, would it be so white people based? Would he have realized need to be more multicultural? The fact that we have a multiracial society. Would he have done that? Would it have been, and then all of this wouldn't have been an argument, would it? It would have been, we're just doing it to the story. But is that because he wrote it? He wrote it a long time ago. He wrote it 40s, 50s.
My answer to that is, if he had written it 10 years ago, it just wouldn't have been a success that it was when he wrote it originally. It would have been something different. And I think a lot of the products of our times, we don't really consume fantasy fiction like we used to so much. I think it's a different thing. This wouldn't have been written 10 years ago. The lore, the basis of the Elven language and his kind of expertise in languages, that's a thing of the past. It is. And I think that is.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? I'm just trying to sort of
I know what you're saying.
Over in my mind, are we thinking of this wrong?
And if he had written, it would have been of a higher standard, no doubt.
He was writing based on the kind of times, he was writing his story based on what people would have known.
He'd come out of a war, hadn't he? He'd come out of the Second World War, and that had the battle and loss and companionship. The brothers at war, on a journey.
But that's what I'm saying.
Foreign land.
He's got great principles in there about, that kind of thing. It was also about things like industrialization, wasn't it? He didn't like that it's destroying the world and that it will, and he could see that side of things. That doesn't, again, it doesn't have to matter whether it's a black or white person playing the roles. Do you know what I mean? That's to me is kind of like, for me, should the principles not be more important than that's what
I'm not worried about. For me, it's not the color of the person's skin that's playing it. I haven't been so bothered. I'm not bothered by that at all.
No,
what I'm bothered about is the fact that they have that
it's only because there's been a lot of talk about that online.
No, exactly. You know? I think it's important to lay out there. That doesn't bother us, is it? But I mean, I think the thing that bothers me is they give elves short hair, and they make you know, which they're not supposed to, and they make Galadriel a warrior rather than this amazing.
Oh yeah, changing the whole character.
Wizardess.
What she was doing and when she was and she didn't actually do that. Do you know what I mean? That to me, that's the point. You know, that's what I'm thinking is they shouldn't be mucking about with. You know, I'm less worried about the black and white thing. That don't bother me at all.
Exactly.
Who gives a shit? You know what I mean? That could just be a freak of nature, not freak of nature.
And
but
anybody that really has a massive problem with that, they are purpose. They have an agenda. People that argue that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know,
it's more the storyline and where the character, what the principle of the characters, you know, who they were being changed. You know, that's
exactly. And I think that takes us back to this whole concept. What is Amazon offering? And I think it's a wider problem within the media, within TV today, and in films. You know, that you can take a brand and put it in the hands of someone else and to a certain extent destroy it in certain people's eyes. You know, and I think that it's a shame that we're so incapable of making new stories and coming up with new products.
That's what I was trying to sort of say earlier. Why is it that they, you know, they could spend all this money, they could create something new, they've got the ability
for half the price.
For half, do you know what I mean? And it could still be a successful, but like you say, we have to just go back over old stories all the time and then end up just ruining them, you know, destroying the principles of what they stand for, you know, because we're trying to make it new and modern. And it's like, well, do something new then.
Do something new. And I mean, for example, with the latest Thor film, with your review, I mean, I think that even the companies that own these products are taking them and just thrashing them, these dead horses, thrashing a dead horse until they try and get as much out of it as possible. And it's a real shame that is the case. Now, there is a lot of untapped material that they could still look at if they don't want to make any new stuff. You know, and if you then say, right, we're going to take a Lord of the Rings, a Middle Earth story and recreate it, do that rather than saying we're doing that. But actually, if you take a closer look, it's not actually what you think it is. Then I think people are going to get angry. And I think the identity thing is a massive problem with this whole the Rings of Power situation.
Absolutely. That would be nothing more that the fans would love if they were true to the storyline from the original, you know, and like you say, if they found some more, you know, even notes or whatever from Tolkien.
Well, he wrote a lot of other stories. You know, that could be accessed.
Absolutely.
But they've decided not. They decided they can't do that. They want to do it, but they can't. And the pressure of the now is that they have to make it diverse and add in new characters to tick those boxes. And it just becomes a corruption. It's corrupting.
That's where it lets it down, isn't it?
So they have said that they've signed up for 5 seasons.
5 seasons. Wow.
5 seasons.
Crikey, that's quite an investment, isn't it?
I mean, it's kind of So I mean, when I was thinking about that, I was also thinking, so how far is this storyline for this episode? These 8 episodes.
What have they actually thought about? You know, as in, what will we see them make the Rings of Power? You know, I'm because there's a whole story, isn't there? How Sauron has kind of deceives them all, doesn't he? And he sort of and then makes the rings and gives them all, you know, gives these rings out and uses it to turn them, really, doesn't he?
We're going to find out more about that.
We're going to find out but that's the worrying thing, though, because when you like watch it, you think, is this actually what the story was? You know,
that's my point.
That's the thing, isn't it? We're going to be sort of thinking, hang on, are they telling the truth here? You know, but there's quite a few Lord of the Rings scholars who do videos and they talk about all this stuff. So I'm going to have to be watching the episode and then the scholars to see which
what is right and what isn't right.
Yeah.
I mean, already I feel like this. As I said before, I'm going to have to separate it from the canon and accept it as something different.
Yes, exactly.
A bit like the Star Trek films, the Star Trek, new Star Trek. Those 3 films.
Well, to be honest with you, they are kind of like a separate universe anyway, aren't they?
Because
there's a time shift, isn't there? There's a change in direction. So I don't consider them as part of what
they're not canon.
Picard and all that sort of thing.
No.
That's all separate. That wouldn't happen in the same way, would it?
Exactly.
But yeah, this is very much. I think the other good thing is obviously it's been. I know they did the Hobbit films reasonably recently, but
I really loved the Hobbit films.
The Lord of the Rings. You see, yes, I thought they were good. I thought, they've really milked it for 3 films a bit.
I didn't feel that. I didn't feel that at all.
Didn't you feel that at all? That's interesting.
I felt like the 3rd Lord of the Rings film was just a complete stretch because the actual book itself, it's not. It's not really much of a story. The 3rd book in Lord of the Rings. My
favourite of them all is the Fellowship of the Ring. I do really enjoy. Yeah, the first one. Yeah, I do really enjoy that film. I think that's really well done.
Yeah.
I think they're all well done. I think those original
brilliant.
3 were brilliant.
I'm just so pleased they did the Hobbits, and I know some people have problems with them, but for me, as an overall average of the films, I actually prefer the Hobbit films to the Lord of the Rings films. I know that makes me a complete weirdo, but I just think the consistency of the story is better. I prefer.
That's good.
I prefer less Gollum and less.
Sometimes
less
the trudging through the Mordor bits were a little bit painful, and also there was quite a few of those sorts of very slow-mo moments when they were suddenly getting and I thought, I could cut those down really,
too much of that.
Samwise and him crying and always I'll help you through,
Mr. Baggins.
Mr. Baggins, That sort of stuff you could cut right out, couldn't you?
I felt it was more like 2 films. Whereas the Hobbit films, I just find that they've got so many characters and all the dwarf stuff I really love, and and it's a bit quirky at the beginning with the singing and the dancing, but that's true to the books.
That was fine. I enjoyed that. I like seeing the dwarves, and when you see them, the few images in that trailer, the dwarves look like the dwarves are going to look,
they do. The dwarves actually look good. I mean, there's still a question over, there's 2 Durins, King Durin the 3rd and Prince Durin the 4th, and apparently they're not meant to exist at the same time or something like that. There's some kind of discrepancy in the story. It reminds me a little bit of remember Braveheart. And how there's the inconsistencies to the historical storyline in Braveheart. Now that's real history being altered, and people sort of
William Wallace,
sort of believed a lot of and he fell in love with the girl there who in reality was something like 5 in real life. There's all that sort of thing, but they've done it to Tolkien's work, making it almost as if it's real, and a lot of people feel that they're feeling like that people are actually the real timelines have been changed. So there's going to be a lot of outcries, and a lot of the trailers released by Amazon have been what they're calling these days. I hate this ratioed. I hate this term that they use.
Yes.
Where they get more dislikes than likes. Yeah. So it's
been pretty bad, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm just thinking I want to enjoy this. When I first heard they were doing a series, I was like, yes, this could be really good.
Yeah. So I wasn't too worried, if they were, you just hope they're going to do it right, not go down.
I think does Amazon want to be Disney? I think that we have to sort of ask ourselves this question, because Amazon commission people to make content like Netflix does. Commissions people, and they have more of a free reign. But I feel like with the Rings of Power, because they're putting $500 million into it, they've they're
more
trying to
involved.
exert more of authority over it, which I
Yeah.
think it has been sort of overlooked a little bit. The identity of Amazon is really, they want to really push this show as Amazon as a real force in TV.
Yes.
When it looks like it might just be a big cock up. A bit like, you know, Disney has done with Obi-Wan recently. That was such a massive balls up. But but you know, and Disney were really kind of exert their brand over anything they do, don't they? So you know,
oh, absolutely,
and I think Amazon's trying to do the same. You know, I think, but through doing this with and they'll still commission other little companies.
If you're authorizing $500 million, you know, you've got to think to yourself, right, we've got to keep an eye on this, you know. But it's if they've got no creative ability, you know, then geez, you know, or they've got particular agendas they're trying to achieve, you know, it's it can be a bit worrying, can't it?
Yeah, it is. You know, it's the creators for this. You know, the writer, Patrick McKay.
You
know,
John Payne.
There's not.
I mean, they were Star Trek Beyond. You know, they were involved in Star Trek Beyond. You know, which wasn't the best.
It's a strange
film
parallel, isn't it? In a way. You know, something that is off.
Kind of come out of the Bad Robot, you know, production side of things. You know, J.J. Abrams, who's not always done the best by certain franchises, has he? So
no,
you know.
I like some of the early stuff that he did.
Oh, I like the Force Awakens. You know, I like the Force Awakens, but then he buggered it up with the
he relinquished control, didn't he? Which was a mistake. He shouldn't have done that. You know, he did Firefly, didn't he, as well, which I thought was good. So
that was Joss Whedon. That was Joss Whedon.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay. They could get Joss Whedon to do that. They need someone like that with creative integrity. You know, which would be awesome, but they haven't. They've landed it in the lap of these really inexperienced people. Something that it demands experience. It feels like this show.
Absolutely,
and
absolutely,
just completely crazy.
And I don't know why they were spending that much money on this. Why didn't they speak to even Peter Jackson? You know, to sort of say, look, you know, what could we do here? Can you give us advice, or can you, you know, or something, even as a producer or something, you know, rather than a not at all, because he knew that. He knows the stuff, doesn't he? He knows it. So,
he lived and
the principle of what makes it what it is, you know.
Well, I wonder if they didn't do that purposely because they probably felt that Peter Jackson was a bit old-fashioned with his approach to things.
Maybe.
And that he wouldn't necessarily have the same sorts of agendas that Amazon has sort of pushed onto the show. I mean, he's known for wanting to be loyal to the Tolkien ethos and the style, you know, but that's not what they want from this show, as far as I can see. So he potentially would have been someone that would have potentially stood in the way of what they were doing if they got him on board. You know, it's a shame.
It's a shame.
I just think that they probably they're not being responsible to anybody in my mind.
No.
You know, they've got some rights,
especially when you're picking up something which has got a huge dedicated fan base that look at the minutiae of every little detail of it. Do you know what I mean? That's the danger, isn't it? You know, you're taking on something so that's revered. You know, that's a very brave step to take.
And I guess that Amazon can employ the best lawyers, can't they? But
that's true.
What right do they have to do this to a precious text? You know, it's like
it's true.
It's very difficult. Say in the art world, in visual arts, if you took a painting and took the rights to it and then painted over it and changed it, you know, it would be viewed as you know, a defamation of that, that work, destroying it. There have been artists in the past, like the Dinos brothers, who
Right.
who took a Goya drawing and rubbed out parts of it. But that was a statement about how you can have the state of art, the preciousness of art.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and what Amazon aren't doing is acknowledging the preciousness of Tolkien's work.
Yeah, yeah.
They're trampling all over it to a certain extent. And I think that these are the underlying currents. This is why people are getting angry.
Oh, yeah.
They don't seem to realize it, or they don't care.
No,
do they not? They don't care, do they? They don't care. You know,
well,
and it's a real shame.
I think the thing with
come
it
out
is,
and say this is an adaptation. Say it's something else.
Exactly. Yes, they should do. You're right. They should say it's an adaptation. It's not actual canon or law or whatever, you know. But if they do that, then they've lost half their audience. Do you know what I mean? They won't be watching. So they're not going to say that until they've got what they want. You know, everybody's watched and then say, well, actually, yeah, you're right. This is more. But
I'm going to try and sit back and just try and take it for what it is.
Yes. Yeah. I think we need to give it a chance. We have to give it a chance.
Yeah.
If it's crap, then we can shoot it down. If it's good, we can say, actually, you know, those changes they've made didn't make too much difference, you know, and now it's, you know, but yeah, just don't meddle with the original script, with the original story. that's the
yeah, I know,
the point to take away from this, isn't it? Just don't fuck with that. Yeah,
I think there needs to be. I think we also need to take away from this. There needs to be integrity, creative integrity, and a certain level of honesty with what is trying to achieve. People don't care if people want if a company wants to produce a series which is out there, ultra diverse, you know, can dealing with feminist issues, power issues, you know, fine. People will sit back and watch it. They'll lap it up and they'll love it as long as they know what it is. But if you try and pull the wool over people's eyes and try and disguise something precious as something else,
that's when it pisses people off.
It's very, very pretentious, very assuming, and you know, they think they're sort of up to date, but they'll be out of date very quickly in about 5 years. And the reason why Tolkien has lasted so long because it has integrity to it, which this, from the look of it, doesn't have.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And the principles, the good principles within it, remain true, don't they? For you know, I think
there you go.
What you said earlier. I think what you said earlier about there was just no real creativity anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A whole strategy now is to buy up a product that somebody else has created, loved, and now just try and make money out of it. You know, and that's the disappointing thing. We need some better creative minds to bring in the new ideas and bring forward the new things. You know.
The stupid thing is, they'll make a lot more money if they do that. They'll make a lot. They make a lot more money if they can do what you're saying.
It gets a bit tiring of watching that sort of thing.
And
you shoot yourself in the foot. It's like Obi-Wan. It's like the Obi-Wan. You know, you're shooting yourselves in the foot. You're damaging the other properties that are around it that are really loved. What are you doing? Jesus.
So I guess I mean, do we live in an age of fan fiction? That is it.
That is
my question.
Isn't it?
Do we live in an age of fan fiction? Because they're just a bunch of fans trying to write stuff that they can't write. You know?
Absolutely. Anyway, well, we've had a good talk about that one. That was a lot more about the principles than the actual show.
I think so. They haven't given a lot away.
No, they haven't.
No, so we just got to go with this kind of discussion, really. I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. All right. Well, thanks for your time, Toby. We'll see how that turns out in September, and we'll obviously be. I presume it's a weekly thing, you know, something as big as this. They're going to do weekly, and
we'll cover it. Definitely,
we'll cover it on a weekly basis, and perhaps we'll do some more Lord of the Rings. You know, it'd be good for us to learn a bit more about the Lord of the Rings, you know, and go through, you know, do a bit of perhaps we do some explanation of the potential timelines. So yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, brilliant, good stuff.
Well, if you like what we're doing, obviously press like and subscribe. If you want to leave any comments about what you feel, please do. It'd be great to hear from you guys. Otherwise, take care and we'll see you soon.